Hello, beautiful people. Good evening, and welcome to the Friday before Memorial Day episode of RickCast, where most of you are on the road or at home enjoying a cool beverage, I hope, and that you've survived your week and you are on the cusp of a 3-day weekend. So I'm very happy for you. Congratulations. Real quick programming note: this guy doesn't take days off. We're going to be on Monday. We're going to be on Memorial Day because it's literally turning on a camera and talking to the screen. And so I will be here Memorial Day week on Monday. No days off. Christmas and Easter. That's really, and I mean Thanksgiving because I got to go family stuff. But those 3 holidays are literally the only days I'll take off if they're not on weekends. But I will be here Monday. No rest for the entertainers, the clowns, whatever you want to call me. I'm here for you. I work for you, and I'll be happy to work for you this Monday. So it'll be a good time to make sure if you're looking to hang out with somebody on Monday, then I'll be here for you. I'm here for you, man. I am here for you. Maybe if I sing, you won't, but I'll be here. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So we have some stuff to talk about tonight. And so for one, I actually do want to check X, the trash platform that is X, because my title has to get this show just absolutely throttled. OnlyFans is for sale, which I know you people are like, no kidding. OnlyFans is always up for sale, but the actual company is up for sale, which is funny because it's about to be completely rendered useless. And that's why the guy who is selling it, he knows it. He knows it's about maybe conservatively, OnlyFans has about a year left. Realistically, it's probably 6 to 8 months before the site is flooded with AI chatbot girlfriends. And the horrors that we all think and know will take place. So that's so that guy's trying to get out while he can, and I can't believe there's people that are going to potentially buy it. I don't know. We'll see. But interesting headline on this Friday. Apple stock took a hit because Donnie's like, I see you going to India with the iPhones, and I want the iPhones here. I want them here in the US. I don't know why he's Jewish in this accent. Um, the iPhones, they got to be made here in the US, not in India, here. And so Apple stock, which I bought, I haven't even looked at Apple stock today, has taken a massive hit. But as I have said on this show repeatedly, I don't care. I don't really care about the stock price. I didn't buy the Apple stock for a short-term gain. By the way, even with this dip, I'm still making money on it because I bought it at 170 and it's at 195. So I'm not hurt. I'm not hurt that much. So Trump is playing hardball, right, Lou? It's not going to happen, but he's trying. He's going to do his thing. If you made the iPhone here, it'd be like $10,000. Here's the crazy thing: most people don't actually buy an iPhone outright. They finance them. You finance them through your plan, right? You buy it from T-Mobile, you buy it from whoever, Verizon, and then they roll the price of the phone into your monthly plan. You pay like $8 a month, $10 a month, whatever the case may be. So if the iPhone went from $1,000 to $2,000, your monthly payment might go up by like $50 or whatever. I don't think it's actually, because most people don't buy the phone outright. So I don't think it's as huge of a deal as some people are saying. Oh, your iPhone's going to cost $6,000. Nobody can afford $1,000 iPhone anyway. They finance them. So they might as well finance it. And now Apple does the thing where it's like, finance it for 2 years and then we'll take it back and give you a new one. So they just swap these things out anyway, because tech is so quick to evolve that it's not anything to really be worried about. So you have that. We're gonna do some Catholic news today, and it's not great news, unfortunately. Coming to us from the beautiful state of North Carolina, Charlotte in particular, the Diocese of Charlotte has decided to move 3 Latin Mass parishes to a faith community center outside the bounds of Charlotte. Um, in case you're not going to be around for that, it's I'll talk about this more, but in case you're not going to be around for that story, if you have to dip out early, my feeling is the bishop is hearing from people, just, cardinals and other bishops and people in the know, that the Holy Father, Pope Leo the 14th, is going to, at some point, 6 months, a year, couple years from now, the Vatican's on its own timetable, but the restrictions on the Latin Mass will be loosened eventually, to the point, because Pope Leo the 14th has said he wants to unify the church, and that's going to be and he said not to rule like an autocrat. And so that's, that might be, I hope, one of his big things, that he will loosen that restriction for my non-Catholic listeners. We'll get into the weeds on it. But the Holy Father, Pope Francis, when he was alive, he put restrictions on a form of our Mass. It's the ancient rite, the Latin Mass. And it gave power to individual bishops, because in reality, bishops are the controller of their diocese, and they gave them the power to restrict or not restrict. And at this case, this bishop has chosen to restrict the Latin Mass to an area outside the city, to make it as difficult as possible to go there, because, and this is all speculation, I'll get into it more when we get to that story. He's saying, now's my chance to try and peel as many people off from the Latin Mass as possible before the Holy Father loosens the restrictions on it. And this is my last chance to really solidify the new rite Mass. Of course, it's not the Holy Father's fault. He doesn't even know what's going on here. But I think he's doing this because down the line, the Mass will be restored. The Latin version, the Latin rite, will be restored back to having access wherever. And I think this is a way to try and get around that. So like I said, I'll get into the weeds on that in a little bit. And then finally, Avengers Doomsday and Marvel has just completely tossed their release dates around. They have no idea what they're doing. The failure of Thunderbolts, and it is a financial failure, and the lukewarm reception to the Pedro Pascal-led Fantastic Four has them. They're reshooting the ending to Fantastic Four as we speak. There's 5 weeks away from this movie supposed to be coming out in theaters, and they're still messing around with the ending because test audiences are like, this is terrible, I don't want to watch this. And Marvel doesn't know what to do. And so they pushed the Avengers Doomsday and Secret War films off 6 months, which is going to cost them even more money, which I don't think they're going to be able to recoup. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes. And I got two really quick hot takes. We'll see what happens. Man, I have when it rains at my house, there are so many snails. I crush snails every time I take my dog out to go to the bathroom after it rains. I'm just crushing snails all over the place. It's crazy. I got snails all over my house, outside my house. I don't really mind. They're slow moving and they don't really do anything bad. At least I don't think so. Maybe I should be setting snail traps as well. Anyway, I appreciate everybody hanging out with me. I know it's a weird night. It's the Friday night before Memorial Day, so everybody's out and about, and that's cool. If you're watching in the replay, thank you. If you're live with me, thank you. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. Oh yeah, they're bad for that. They're bad. Then you know what? Kill them all, buddy. Kill them all. Get all of them. Just destroy them. That's what I want you to do. All right, let's get to our stories. I don't have any videos. There's not a lot of video stuff today. It's really just kind of talking about. Usually we have video stuff. No, not a lot of it. Sorry, guys. No moving pictures for you. First up, from breaking or leading report, leftist media to tone down anti-Trump rhetoric, per The Independent. This is a huge win for Trump if this is true, simply because he's won. He's won. And the leftist media made a lot of money when Trump was in office the first time, going after him and saying all these things about him. And we talked about an article yesterday that The View has been told, hey, y'all need to calm down this nonsense that you're doing. You ladies need to just calm down and stop talking so much. So, yeah, if this is true and they do tone this rhetoric down, first of all, I don't know. The real question is, I don't know how NBC, CNN, MSNBC, it's the same company, I get it, ABC, CBS, I don't know how these companies turn, because they've been doing this type of rhetoric. They've been doing this type of coverage for 10 years, right? They've been doing this for 10 years, and they did really well during Trump's first term. It looks like they're not doing as well now, because people are either hip to it or they're just like, can you shut up for 5 minutes and let the guy do what he's doing? So it's interesting how, you got to tone down the coverage. You're telling people that have been brought on because they hate Trump to not hate Trump. And it's a very interesting idea. I don't think it's going to work. They can ask to tone down the rhetoric, but I don't think it's going to work at all, because it's not just rhetoric to these people. It's ideology to these people. It's a belief system to these people. So, yeah, you can promise that it's going to happen, but in the end, I don't think they'll try it, but I don't think it's in there. So, right, they got the cutout of the big beautiful bill, BBB. We tried to call it the big beautiful laws, because I know Brian likes the BBLs, and we tried to call it the big beautiful laws so we could say I've passed the BBL. But could you imagine that? If he was such a troll. We're going to pass the BBL, the big beautiful laws out there for all my BBLs. Love ya. All right, let's get to our second story of the day. Kind of bittersweet. This is from Yahoo Sports. 23 years and 4,953 episodes later, Around the Horn has aired its final show. The end of an era in sports television. And ironically enough, they brought back all the people you liked, like Woody Page and J.A. Adonde and all the guys you used to listen to, for one last episode, which is ironic, because if they kept Woody Page, J.A. Adonde, and Bill Ryan, I think it was, and Tim Capshaw, and I'm messing up the names, if they kept the original sports writers and kept the show as it was, the show would still be on the air today. But because they brought in woke lesbian writers, the thing was, and Whitlock actually, when he heard this announcement, when they announced that it was going to end, he said, I knew this was going to happen. Whitlock knew it was going to happen because they brought in writers to give it credence, to give it a credential, to solidify it. And then as soon as that happened, they dumped all the old white writers and brought in a bunch of whacked out feminists. The reason the show is canceled is because they got rid of the original cast. Pardon the Interruption is still going strong. And the crazy thing is, if Around the Horn stuck, and it's not the guy's fault, the host or anything, if the producers stuck with what worked, which was sports writers arguing about stuff, then, by the way, the chalkboard is inspired by Woody Page. So, you can see Around the Horn's impact even coming on to this show that, it's not about sports, but I actually thought of Woody Page when I was like, I need to fill that area. And I was like, oh, I'll put in a chalkboard, just like Woody Page used to do. And that's the influence this show had. But now it's got to get canceled because it went woke. We played clips from it where you just had these fat lesbians being like, representation matters and trans lives and blah, blah, blah. And people are like, I'm not watching this. Right? Yes, Lou. That's one more thing feminists and femme men should not be involved in, is sportscasting. But that's the problem. When Disney bought ESPN all those years ago with the plan to try and subvert the culture, to try and change the culture through woke ideology in sports, which is why you're still getting the WNBA, right? They're still trying to push like Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark when clearly the skill level does not match up between the two. Caitlin Clark is a living, breathing phenomenon, and Angel Reese is a tall black girl that can't shoot. She can rebound, she can defend, but I have a better chance of scoring a basketball from anywhere on the court, and that includes behind the half court line, than Angel Reese does 2 feet from the basket. But you're getting that kind of stuff, and that's all these reverberations. I don't know what they're going to do to replace it. The issue is they're going to replace it with another woke version of sportscasting. What are they going to call it? Lesbian talking hour or whatever the case may be. And it is what it is. Well, she doesn't have to have any sportsmanship, Lou. That's a great point you bring up. But because the legacy media covers for her, because they cover for her, they enable her to be as big of a witch as she is. And because they're like, you're such a strong black woman, Angel, and we're watching because of you. And everybody's like, nobody's watching the WNBA because of Angel Reese. Oh no, WWF has chicks calling matches. Ugh. I stopped watching when they started promoting the jab. When they started promoting the jab on that show, I was like, nah, I'm out of here. And then I watched WWE during the pandemic because I was like one of the few things that was going because Ron DeSantis was like, yeah, you guys are essential. Go beat each other up. So I watched that. But as soon as the shamdemic pandemic was over and they were like, get your vaxes and I was like, nah, I'm not doing that. Boop, and just turned it off. Plus some of the storylines are just getting a little too demonic with Wade, rest his soul, Wade Bryant and all those guys. So I could not imagine. And also the pushing of women's wrestling. I see clips on X. Yeah, the whole women's push. Sorry, unless and this is what they have to do. They have to like take these women and pretty much put them down to their skivvies, for lack of a better term, and run around the ring. Like nobody cares. I'm sorry, they're athletic. They're they take beatings and they do their stuff. It's just not interesting. Right? So what do they lean into? They lean into their sexuality because that's what guys want to watch. So it is what it is in that regard. But end of an era, and it's actually ironic that if they just stuck with the script that made it work in the first place, if they stuck with the script in the first place, it would have been fine. They would still be on the air today, but people be dumb. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to our first story of the day. Interesting enough, OnlyFans is in talk to be sold for $8 billion. And this kind of dropped, and everybody went, well, that's weird. You're selling OnlyFans is selling? I mean, it always sells. But the buyer could be an investment group led by a company called Fourth Road. Let's address this again. For you guys who are just coming in, welcome to RickCast. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. Thank you for hanging out with me. If you just showed up, cool, awesome. I'm going to be here Monday too. Same Rick time, same Rick channel. We don't take Memorial Day off. There's no reason to take it off. If you're in any kind of broadcasting, there's no reason to take Memorial Day off. If you're in independent broadcasting, it's stupid. Because you're sitting behind a camera, you're sitting behind a microphone talking. So you shouldn't take the day off. We aren't, and we're going to get after it. But just for you guys who are showing up, we're going to be here Monday. I hope to see you on Monday, and we can hang out together. It'll be fun. Dean, you are good to go, buddy. I'm happy you're here. You are good to go. I'm glad you're here, brother. All right. OnlyFans is in talks to sell for $8 billion. Why would this take place? Why would they sell OnlyFans? It apparently makes all this money, blah, 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 blah. Because it's a dead product. OnlyFans is a dead product. And the owner knows it. He's seen the Google Flow demonstrations. He's seen AI. Ironically enough, I wish I could show it. Steve Cunningham from News from the Pew, he sent me, he did his own AI clip. He generated it from Google AI. And it was a really nice clip, really clean. And they're already on Instagram. It's the AI girlfriend, the AI model, right? The AI model is on Instagram already. And it's about conservatively a year away, realistically, like 8 months away from dominating the OnlyFans site. And so all of these women who have abandoned their careers, their husbands, their dignity for a paycheck, which by the way, they don't really make that much money anyway on there, except for like a few. And they only pay those few to entice everybody else to come on and do it. They're going to all get replaced. They're all going to get put out of work. It stinks, but a real woman, and hold on, let's get this set up. Misogyny alert. A real woman cannot compete with an artificial intelligence girlfriend. They can't. They can't compete with it. It's available 24 hours a day. It always looks its best. It doesn't talk back, and it's happy to see you. There's nothing women can do. And it's funny because women have been sold this bill of goods for the last, post 2020 about OnlyFans and revolution and your independence and all these other kinds of things. You can be your own boss and blah, 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 blah. Selling feet pics, let's say. And within about 6 months to a year, this site's just going to be an AI driven site. And guys will stay. Guys will stay and guys will pay. They have no problem doing that. In fact, OnlyFans might get more popular if it just becomes AI, because at least when the guy's giving money to that, he doesn't have to worry about it not loving him back, because it will tell him. It'll form these parasocial relationships. This is dangerous. But then again, OnlyFans has been an absolute disaster to the male-female dynamic. OnlyFans is on the selling block, according to reports by Reuters. The current owner of the adult entertainment platform, Phoenix International, is in talks to sell to an investment group at a valuation of about $8 billion. This group is being led by an entity called Forest Road Company, which is an investment firm based in Los Angeles. The platform generated $6.6 billion in revenue last year, which, by the way, let's all take a moment to, hold our heads in shame that OnlyFans made $6 billion last year, which means there's a lot of lonely men, which means when it goes AI, it's not going to get better for them. So the idea of an $8 billion payout doesn't seem that far-fetched. OnlyFans became a global phenomenon during 2020, and it takes about 20% of all quote-unquote creator earnings. Investment interest has peaked over the past several months as impressive earning statements became public and managed to triple its revenue since 2020, which is something many companies that experienced 2020 related boosts cannot say, like Peloton. Remember when everybody was like, you need a Peloton because we're all at home and we have to work out, so go get a Peloton and, enjoy it. Me and my wife, we talked about it. Because for a while, my wife was like, I think I want a Peloton. And I was like, just watch it for a little bit because it might be a fad. And luckily we didn't, because it crashed out. Now I think Amazon bought it and they use it. So it's still a company, but there was a time when Peloton was everywhere in 2020 and now it's not. So you can look in 2019, it didn't even generate $1 billion. And then 2020, 2.2, 2021, 4.8, 5.5, 6.6, which is very interesting earning statements. They're all but this is the continuation of, hey, you don't need no man. If you come on hard time, do you want to be a secretary your whole life, or do you want to slave in an office, or do you want to stay at home in the comfort of your home and, just do some stuff every once in a while and upload it. Which, by the way, most of those poor guys, they think they're talking to the girl, they're talking to like one of her handlers. They're like, oh, you're actually not talking to the girl. You're talking to like her handler or like somebody she hired to respond to you. So have stated that the deal could be reached within the next week or two. However, Phoenix International have also been in talks, or should it be has? All right, I don't like that. With other potential buyers, an IPO is also being considered, an idea that's been floating around since 2022. However, an outright purchase is more likely than a public offering. This is due to the coin of it all. The company tried to get around it by announcing a ban on explicit content in 2021, but reversed course before the ban went into effect. After all, OnlyFans is for that type of content. Yeah, right. Out of the 500 dudes that are DMing her, she's responding to me because she likes me. It really is a shame what OnlyFans has done to men, right? It's kept them even more isolated, more locked in their homes, more and then it also, women don't realize this most, but when men grow up, and I mean, what's the statistic? Let's see here. Most young men haven't asked a girl on a date. Let's see. There's a headline on that you see keep flowing around. From medium.com. 45% of men aged 18 to 25 have never approached a woman in person. And that is an OnlyFans effect. Because why do I need to go out to a bar, approach a woman, have her shoot me down because I'm too short or I'm too ugly or I'm whatever the case may be, when I can just stay at home in the comfort of my own debauchery and just watch this girl perform for me? And what does that mean? For men, that turns women into objects. Right? One of the things, I don't want to be objectified. And then they go on OnlyFans, which is nothing but exploitation. And so women are like, well, no men will approach me. Men don't come to talk to me, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, because your standards have been inflated because of the internet, because you can go on a dating app and get 1,000 men to give you affection and tell you you're the prettiest woman in the world or whatever the case may be, because dating apps are skewed primarily towards women. And then, one night you hook up with an alpha chad, which you shouldn't be doing, but you hook up with an alpha chad one night because it's a slow night and that guy decides to settle on you. You're like a strong 6, and the alpha chad's like, I got no other options. So you go home, you hook up with him, and then you think you deserve the alpha chad all the time when you were just being used. And then the woman's like, I can't be with another, right? Because it used to be 9s and 10s marry 9s and 10s. Maybe a 9 marries an 8. 6 and 7s, mix and match. 5 and 4s match. 1s and 2s match. That's just how it goes from society. Society is built on ugly people. Not me. I was lucky. I went the white man route. I found a hot Hispanic woman, so I took the cheat code that most guys do. I went with the international flair. But let me not say ugly people. Average looking people. Average people build society, and when average women think they deserve super hot men, and they don't date the average dude because, he's not cool, he has an office job or he works at a mechanic shop or whatever, and he doesn't make 6 figures, and I want to blah 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 blah. It's like, well, honey, the alpha chad lawyer that hooked up with you that one time, he's got 100 other 6, 7, 8, 9s lined up. And so it's one of these things that has been absolutely detrimental to society. So women with dating apps, their ego has been inflated. because they go on Instagram or they go on whatever the apps are. I don't know what the apps are. And they have hundreds of men begging to take them out on a date or telling them they're pretty or whatever the case may be. And so men are like, I'm not approaching a woman. Why would I approach a woman in a bar? Because they're also going to call me a rapist. They're going to call me, this show's just going to get demonetized on YouTube, but whatever. They're going to call me all kinds of things. They're going to make fun of me. So I'm just going to stay home. So that's not a great statistic, guys. And that's from last year. This is a hauntingly bad statistic. Almost 50% of men 18 to 25 never approach a woman. And so it's bad out there. And so OnlyFans, the site that it is, has been the key to destroying the dynamics between men and women. Between men and women. Now, Dean, that's very nice. Only you can tell me that. But so yeah, I'm not surprised. Maybe the people that want to buy it understand it's going to be an AI model, and maybe they'll tune it to make it efficient, because even if it does get flooded with AI, it'll still be a profitable site because it'll be a place men know where to go. And so it's sad, but it's also not shocking that this is taking place. All right, this is RickCast. Like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell to find out all the great stuff that we talk about. We talk about all kinds of stuff here on RickCast, and we try to identify the ills of society. Even though we won't fix it, we can at least say, hey, we know what it is. All right, let's get to our next story of the night. Apple stock is down after Trump iPhone tariff announcement. I don't mind. I have Apple stock. I bought it in the great downturn that took place. And so it's still up for me for where I bought it. But this RickCast is an economic protectionism supporting show. We love the Holy Father, Pope Leo XIV. We're for economic protectionism. We love the Hampton Inn, and we stand the Waffle House. And there's something else I keep forgetting, but it is what it is. Well, it'll come to me. We love Ruger as well in this household. So I'm not shocked that Trump is trying to do this, because Apple said, well, we'll take it from China and we'll go to India. So that way, we can make sure that we can keep the prices low. And Trump's like, that's not going to work. It's not going to work. Sorry. So Apple's stock has dropped on Friday as trading opened following President Donald Trump's social post, in which he wrote that he'd implement a 25% tariff on Apple if the company didn't onshore Apple production. Trump has repeatedly suggested that companies can save money and avoid paying tariffs by manufacturing in these United States in a bid to boost domestic manufacturing, which President Trump has said will boost the American jobs and the economy. Right now, the iPhone 16 Pro costs somewhere between $999 and $1,499 on Apple's website, depending on how much crap you want to put in it. But the dirty little secret to that is that nobody pays for that outright. That's something people, I don't know if anybody else has addressed it, but people don't pay $900 for the iPhone. You get it free. Sorry, I hate air quotes. You get it for free. You get it for free because they roll the payments into the plan that you purchase. Whatever your plan is, they just lump in the $12 a month or $15 a month or whatever, $100 a month for whatever phone you want, and you don't see it. It's like a house payment. You finance the phone. So if it went up to $2,000 to $2,500, $3,000, your payments may be a little higher, but T-Mobile and Verizon and these companies will work around ways to drop that price to be acceptable for all of that. So it's crazy that people are trying to say that's a big deal. Most people, unless they want to buy a phone and unlock it or jailbreak it, they don't do that. Currently, iPhone is produced in China, with some production in Southeast Asia, countries like Vietnam. Apple has looked to shift some of its production to India in order to avoid the heavy tariffs on products made in China, and parts for the iPhone are sourced from Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan. after Trump announced the 145% tariff on products out of China, which, by the way, has been paused. Newsweek is forgetting to say that it has been paused right now, but, it is what it is. And Beijing retaliated with the reciprocal tariffs on the U.S. products at 125. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent met with his Chinese counterparts and negotiated a significant but temporary reduction as a commitment to further trade negotiations. Trump wrote that he had long ago informed Tim Cook of Apple that I expect their iPhones that will be sold in the United States of America to be manufactured and built in the United States, not India, not the Indians, not the Odududus. No. Gotta be here or anywhere else. And if that's not the case, a tariff of at least 25%, 25, must be paid by Apple to the U.S. Thank your Trump with his classic fat thumbs. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Trump out. Apple stock closed at $201.36 a share on Thursday, with very little change in after-hour trading. Following it dropped to $194. So that's not even a $10 drop. I mean, that's not a huge hit. I know I put that in the title. What can I say? I'm just as bad as everybody else. As of 11:30 Friday, the stock has recovered some at 196. I just checked, it was 195. I don't care. And I don't think it's actually going to work. Yes, you got the actual quote. American components, Russian components, all made in Taiwan. Yep, from Armageddon. So it doesn't matter that he's trying to do this. He's trying to negotiate while he can to try and move more production to the US. Now, will the iPhone be a little bit more expensive? Yes and no. Yes, because production is going to have to cover the cost of paying employees and things like that. But no, because Apple's going to have to cap it because people are not going to pay $10,000 for an iPhone. The best they can probably hope for is maybe $4,000 financed. And that just goes to the fact that Apple may have to take a little bit of a chop on the profits on the top end in order to make this work. And if they can just do what most people consider what they're going to do, take the 25%, because the 25% is still going to be a cheaper iPhone than if they make it here in these United States. Either way, once again, I'm fine with Trump pushing these guys around because they have exploited slave labor, especially Apple with the Foxconn plant, where they have nets to prevent people from unaliving themselves because the conditions are so terrible there. So it is something to be brought up. People don't really pay attention to the fact that their iPhones and their Samsungs and every piece of computer equipment that I'm staring at right now has been made in some way, shape, or form with slave labor. I hate to think of it that way, but some of the components, were mined by tiny kids in like China or in Africa to be brought to be made and all these other kinds of things. So it's sad to see that. So in a way, I kind of like the idea of bringing manufacturing back to these United States. Yeah, would it hurt the Chinese? Whatever, but it would relieve those people who are being, forced to live in slave conditions to make our stuff. Maybe in one way, having our stuff made here can at least relieve that idea of slave labor out and about. You're right, slavery is alive and it's well in pretty much everywhere. So when people are like, oh, slavery was so bad back in the, yeah, but guess what? It's still going on and you can't shut your face up about that. So this is a big deal, I guess. I'm glad to see Trump doing it. There could be some positive repercussions on that, or maybe nothing happens and Apple's just like, whatever, dude, we'll take the tariffs. We'll take the tariffs and roll them into the phone. But I don't mind Trump kind of smacking these companies around a little bit. They definitely deserve it and they earned it. All right, moving on fast and furiously on this Friday before Memorial Day. Once again, if you're just joining us, I will be here Monday, 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern. We don't take days off. We take Christmas, Easter, and if Thanksgiving falls, I won't work Thanksgiving because usually I'm with family. But if I'm not with family, I'll do it. The only days off are Christmas and Easter. Those are the days I take off because I understand how much of a privilege it is that you guys tune in. Even if you spend 5 minutes with me, 10 minutes with me, I appreciate every single one of y'all hanging out with me on Rumble and on Getter and on YouTube and even like the 9 people on X. It just blows me away that you guys hang out with me. And, you know, if I can't muster up the strength to come on here for an hour and talk to you, then I'm lame, and I'm not lame. So I'll be here Monday. Hopefully you will be. If you're traveling, if you're out in the picnic and all these other kinds of things, that's cool too. Either way, it'll be a good time. You will have a good time on your Labor Day or your Memorial Day. No, Labor Day is September. Memorial Day is Monday. You either have a good time at your barbecue, your hangout, or you'll hang out with me. Either way, it's going to be good for you. All right, let's do some Catholic talk here on RickCast. Sad news today, out of Charlotte. Catholic parish to close in Indiana after bishop restricts then ousted Latin Mass. Oh, that's Indiana. I thought we were also talking about, let me see, Latin Mass, Charlotte. I can never spell Charlotte. There it is. Oh, thank you, AI, for listening. Thank you, AI, for listening to me. There it is. Catholic vote. We'll go to fact. I guess this is something that happened too, because that's a couple days ago. Catholic parish to close in Indiana after bishop restricts, then ousted the Latin Mass. And then today in Charlotte, no, thank you. Please go away. Diocese of Charlotte to end parish-based Latin Mass celebrations ahead of Vatican deadline. So before we get into this, let me talk my thoughts on this, and we'll see if it's true or not. But my feeling, and for those of you who are evangelicals or Protestants and you don't understand the big fuss, we have different rites, celebrations, different masses. We have something called the Latin Rite, which is one that extends all the way back as far as we know. And then we have something called the Novus Ordo, the New Rite, which is practiced primarily in English. It's very akin to your Protestant services that you guys have. It's much more geared towards the people, where the Latin Mass is more geared towards God. And that is not me trying to be critical of the masses. That's essentially what they're broken down to. If I'm wrong in the chat, you guys let me know. I'll be honest with you, because I never like to be, I always like to keep it straight with you guys. I am a Latin Mass guy. I like the Latin Mass when I can get to it. The closest one is Baylor University, and I go to Baylor as often as I can. But there are some times when I can't. So I'm not one of these people where if I can't get to a Latin Mass, I won't go. I will still go to the best Novus Ordo I can find, simply because I'm not gonna, I'm not one of these people that is going to miss Sunday, which is a holy day of obligation, because it's not the Mass I like. And I know that kind of upsets some Latin people, and it's not me throwing shade at you guys. It's me just trying to cover my soul and my wife's soul. I don't want to take the chance that God will look at me and judge. I already got enough to apologize for it, the 4 final things. I don't want another one being, you had a Mass near you and you didn't come celebrate the Mass that the church on earth, which I said, whatever's bound on earth, I'll bind in heaven, loose on earth, loose in heaven. If the church said that this is a valid Mass and you decided in your pride not to go, I don't need that. I don't need that. You may have a different opinion on that, and I'm not throwing shade at you. I'm just telling you how I act. We love the Latin Mass. If we can't get to it, we will go to a Novus Ordo to make sure that we are in, we are staying as close as we can. Is it tough sometimes? Yeah, there's some bad ones we've been to. There's some real bad ones. And my wife and I have a joke. Sometimes we'll go to a bad one and we'll walk out and we'll go, we got to get back to the Latin Mass. we got to get back to the Latin Mass. And so, yeah, I'm lucky. Baylor is still there. And so it's It is what it is. And I think we used to have St. Mary's in Austin, St. Mary's Cathedral, beautiful cathedral. And they used to have Latin masses on Sunday. The bishop restricted that. Now that bishop's in Galveston. We are awaiting a new bishop in our diocese, so we'll see what he has to say. But I think the Baylor one will be okay because it's on a college campus and they can use the excuse of, oh, well, we had the Latin mass to offer it to our Catholic students to give them different perspectives on things. And so, I think that one's going to be all right, but it is what it is. Yeah, I bet you do, Brian. A lot of we call them refugees, right? People that want to go to the Latin mass. There's a couple, I think it's Dickinson may have one. There's a couple down there. I know there's some SSPXs in Houston. Dickinson has that one. There's a couple. There's a Latin mass west of Austin. There's the Marianite mass in Austin, if I had to. And I'm not going to lie, there's the Orthodox Rite that's in Waco as well. They have an Orthodox Rite. I think it's a Ukrainian Orthodox in Waco that they do, and the church has no problem with the Orthodox Rite. Vatican II, they let them do their whole thing. So if my wife and I really were desperate for something like that, we would just go to the Orthodox. So the reason why I'm explaining all this to you guys, my evangelical brothers and sisters, is because Pope Francis, during his pontificate, decided to issue something called Traditionis Custodes, which I am butchering. I am absolutely butchering to death. But it essentially gives bishops the power to restrict Latin masses. And why do they do this? We had a council called Vatican II back in the 60s. And the purpose of that council was to, change the way the mass was being offered. We needed to make it more towards the people and not so, removed and all these other kinds of things. And it changed the mass from the Latin Rite to our Novus Ordo Rite. And the bishops that we have now, even our Pope Leo the 14th, they've all grown up in the era of Vatican II. And so what they are trying to do, and this is my opinion, we'll see in the article, my opinion is this bishop is throwing this down. First of all, I have some very good friends in Charlotte, Steve Cunningham being one of them, and a couple other really good friends. Charlotte is a powerhouse of Catholicism, by the way. There's a lot of great Catholics up in Charlotte. I got to meet a lot of them at the Catholic Men's Conference earlier this year. But when that bishop came in earlier in the year, there was the fear automatically, like, we don't know this bishop, he's probably going to come in and restrict the Latin mass on us because he has the authority to do so under Traditionis Custodes. Now, once again, if I'm getting any of this wrong, my Catholics, please call me out, and I want to make sure I'm doing it right. But that was the fear. Like, okay, this guy's going to come in, he's going to restrict the mass because he wants the current crop. There's some good ones that don't mind. They're like, go ahead, you guys can do the Latin mass, I don't care. But there's a lot of them that want to funnel as many Catholics into the Novus Ordo because that's their preferred mass. That's what they want. And they look at the Latin one as too rigid, or it's not as friendly. There's a lot of different reasons that a bishop can restrict the mass, but the main reason is to promote the Novus Ordo mass. Because if you are ever looking at Latin masses versus Novus Ordo, we call them whiteheads at the Novus Ordo. It's a lot of old people. It's a lot of boomers, not a lot of families, because those are the people that wanted it. They wanted this change. They wanted this progressivism that happened. Latin masses, whether it's SSPX, Society of St. Paul, FSSP, the Fraternal Society of St. Peter, or a diocesan mass that are Latin, they're full every week. When I go to Baylor, my wife and I, if we don't get there early enough, we're pretty much sitting in the back. Every Latin mass I've ever been to has been packed. People love it. A lot of young families there. And this is across this Union of States. And so what they're trying the Society of St. Pius, Society of St. Pius X. Thank you, Brian. St. Paul. Yeah, it wouldn't be Society of St. Pius X. That's the SSPX. And so they're trying to remove this option to force people back into the Novus Ordo. They're trying to funnel it into their preferred mass. And that's just not right. The Latin Mass, I believe, is a guarantee. I know Michael Thomas, Michael Shannon, the guy of the Catholic Land Movement, a good man and somebody that I've had some good talks with and has helped me out. So thank you to Michael Thomas. I think he said that the Latin Mass is a guarantee, or I think it was Michael Thomas in the chat said that back in the day. Michael Thomas, I think you're the one who said the Latin Mass is guaranteed to Catholics as a right. We should have that option to have it. And so how they get around this is this bishop, he's not actually restricting the Mass. He's giving you an option, but it's outside of town in a faith-based center. Yeah, see, we got some really smart Catholics in the chat. So if you have questions, if you're a Protestant, if you want to jump in and ask them, they'll be more than happy to answer them. So we're guaranteed the Mass. So he's saying, listen, I'm giving you the Mass, but it's at this faith center. It's not even at a Catholic church. It's at a Protestant faith center outside the city limits. And his goal, I believe, is I think he has heard, and this is all speculation. Take it with a pound, take it with a full soda a bottle of soda worth of salt. A metric, fill the Titanic with salt. That's how much salt you need to take with this. This is all speculation on my part. The Bishop of Charlotte is hearing from people that eventually, not immediately, but eventually, the Holy Father, Pope Leo XIV, will loosen the restrictions on the Latin Mass. And he's trying to get ahead of this and trying to say, listen, if I can peel off as many families as I can between now and that date by just making it as hard to access as possible, that'll be a win for me. So I think he's doing it because the clock is running out on that actual document. But let's take a look. Bishop Michael Martin, OFM of the Diocese of Charlotte, North Carolina, announced on May 23rd that effective July 8th, the traditional Latin Mass, as we call it, the TLM, will no longer be celebrated in parish churches in the diocese. Now, there will be SSPX because they operate outside of the diocese. If you're not a Catholic, it's a long story. They just kind of operate on their own. The FSSP also doesn't have to operate under diocese. They have their own thing. The Vatican's fine with them. They have no problem. The FSSP actually celebrated Latin Masses at St. Mary Major and at St. Peter's after the Pope was elected. So they're going to be fine. But diocesan ones under the bishop's control, he's not allowing those anymore. And so no longer celebrated. This comes ahead of the previously granted Vatican permission, allowing 4 parishes to continue until October 2nd, which is that's really like a really bad. Yeah, I think so. It's going to be interesting to see what the head of it, Jason, does. He's a really good Catholic. I know he won't be dissuaded by this. I know he's disappointed, but I know Jason, he'll figure out a way around it. But that's just, it comes off as just cold-hearted because they had until October 2nd, and he's just cutting them off a couple of months ahead of time, which there's a reason why Pope Leo XIV has made a statement over and over again that he wants to unify the church, because acts like these create division within the church. It will do one of two things to the Latin Mass community. And this is a community. Unlike Novus Ordo parishes, they try to have community, and they do a little bit. The Latin Mass communities are communities. These people they go to church together. They'll stay after. The church is a center for them for all of their occasions. That it is truly a thing to see. If you've actually seen a Latin parish flourish, it is a gorgeous thing to be a part of. Because they live the faith. The people that go to Novus Ordo, this is not a slam on them. They kind of they go to the Mass and then they go home, which is cool. It's absolutely cool. I'm not slamming Novus Ordo people because I'm kind of half of one. I go to one every once in a while, but this is just a wicked thing that promotes disunity. And it flies really in the face of what Pope Leo XIV is trying to do, which is reunify the church, which is why I believe at some point, I don't know when, it may not be for a couple years. The Vatican works on its own timetable. He may, when he feels comfortable enough, because you have to understand, even if Pope Leo XIV wants to undo Traditionis Custodes and he wants to loosen the restrictions on the Mass, he's going to get pushback because there's a lot of people in the Vatican Secretary of State, they're all Francis appointed people. They're all people that Francis, they're all tight. They all believe that Pope Francis's agenda should be continued. So he's going to have to face a lot of pushback. And I don't think he's going to get rid of Traditionis Custodes until he's got his people in place. And that could be a couple years, guys. So it's awful. And my heart really hurts. I learned about this from one of my really good friends. I call him a brother. I went on the Martyrs Walk with him. He sent a message out to a bunch of us. He's like, yeah, we're getting restricted and we're getting pushed out. They'll go. So and Bellator says some of these bishops are more afraid to implement it because they know those communities have the cash flow and the NOs are dying. That's why we call the NO masses the whiteheads, because it's full of old people. And the money is left to right. And so that's why you'll have it for that reason. And so a lot of bishops will restrict it down to one or two. So it is what it is, but it's still a sad thing for Charlotte, because Charlotte is a powerhouse, and they're taking 3 Latin masses and converging them into one. But let's take a look. My predecessor, Bishop Peter Juris, requested and received from the Holy See an extension for the Diocese of Charlotte in order to arrange an orderly transition to the new instruction. Bishop Martin wrote in his pastoral letter, the temporary extension expires this year, and I'm now ready to finish the diocese implementation of the norms established in Traditionis Custodes. The decision completes the diocese transition under this Traditionis Custodes, Pope Francis's 2021 directive, limiting the availability of the TLM. So that's why I'm thinking in my parish of Austin, they'll leave Baylor alone, because that will say, well, there's availability. It's just at Baylor. Which is out of a lot of people's way. Waco's in the middle of Texas. I mean, it's like almost an hour away from me, but it's cool. My wife and I go there, and then we go to this place called Hecho or Hancho. It's called Made in Waco, whatever the Mexican word is. I play around with her so much I don't even remember it, but it's a really good Mexican restaurant. We go there either after church or either way for either brunch or dinner. So my wife and I, we make a date night out of it. The decision completes the diocese transition. A diocesan priest will serve as chaplain of the new TLM location, offering 2 Sunday masses and masses on holy days of obligation. And we use something called the 1962 Roman Missal. 2 of the parishes that are set to end the TLM, St. Anne's and St. Thomas Aquinas, where the Catholic Men's Conference has been, and I've been to multiple Latin masses at St. Thomas, beautiful parish, by the way, are in Charlotte and relatively close to the new chapel's location. Devotees who wish to attend the Mass at St. John the Baptist Parish in Tyrone and Our Lady of Grace Parish in Greensboro will have about a 1.5 to 2.5 hour drive to the new Mooresville location. In his letter, Bishop Martin emphasized the desire to fulfill the late Holy Father's vision for liturgical quote-unquote harmony, which they try to hide behind, oh, well, it's harmony because everybody's celebrating the same Mass, and we don't want to have 2 different Masses and 2 different blah, blah, blah. Which it doesn't matter, because the Catholic Church has how many rights are under the Catholic Church? Let me see if I wrote this out correctly. So there are 23 other Catholic churches or rights under the umbrella of the Roman Catholic Church. And like I said, the Ukrainian Orthodox that I've been to, that is not the Novus Ordo Mass. But they are allowed to practice that Mass. So I don't know why is it 23 or 24? What did I say? 23 or 24. We're kind of in the same place. So there are things like the Orthodox, the Marionette, not marionettes, the Marians, marionettes like the puppet, the Marians. There's so many different there's the Latin Rite, there's the Alexandrian Rite, the West Syrian Rite, the Armenian Rite, the East Syrian Rite, the Constantinople or Byzantine Rite. And that's where a lot of like this covers everything from like Macedonian, Slavic, Byzantine Church. There's a ton of them. And so when they talk about harmony, it's kind, and I'm Holy Father, I'm not Holy Father, Your Excellency, I'm not trying to throw shade at you. These are my opinions and my opinions alone. I think it's disingenuous to say that you're promoting traditional harmony when if there's a Ukrainian rite. I wonder if there's a Ukrainian rite that's celebrated at St. Thomas Aquinas. I wonder if they will allow the Ukrainian rite to continue at St. Thomas Aquinas, because he can't restrict that. They are allowed to practice. So that'll be interesting. So if you didn't want to do the new mass rite, you could just go to the Ukrainian rite that still satisfies for Catholics our Sunday obligation. So what he's doing, he's saying that he's trying to promote liturgical harmony when he's really splintering these dioceses even more, because those families will not, there are families that will not go to the Novus Ordo. Like I said before, there are some, they'll go to the SSPX, they'll drive 2.5 hours to the Latin Mass, they'll go to the Ukrainian Rite, they'll do anything but go to the new Mass because they just don't like it. And you know what? There's a lot, my wife and I agree. We are not really huge fans of the Novus Ordo, but we will attend if we have no other option. And it's really one of these things that is sad, because this seems like it's being done. He's doing it under the late Holy Father's vision. And here's what I'm going to say that it may get some people upset. Pope Francis is dead. And that's not me. Pope Francis is dead. So why won't Bishop Martin wait for the new Holy Father's direction and kind of keep everything as is? And that's why I'm thinking he's doing this, because he has a feeling that this TC, Traditionis Custodes, will be appended, loosened, all of these other things, and that the Francis ideology will go by the wayside. So I think he's trying to cut it off at the pass, if you will, which I don't think it comes off as a really nasty thing to do, almost like you're punishing the Latin Mass Catholics for the crime of enjoying a certain way of celebrating our Lord and Savior. And so this is a sad thing. So for my evangelical brothers and sisters, my Protestant brothers and sisters, it's a problem that we have in the church. And it's really hard to go from something where you have such reverence for, Michael, that's a great point. When you go to a Latin Mass, you feel the reverence in the air. And this is not a knock against the Novus Ordo. I just don't feel it when I go to one of those. People don't seem to take it as seriously, and that's because they've been poorly catechized, which is not the right way to say it, but you know what I'm saying. Unfortunately, many Catholics, myself included, were poorly catechized, and we were taught in our CCD classes or whatever to not be as reverent to it as we should be. And that's a problem with the teachings. That's a problem with the upbringing, and it's something that I hope Pope Leo's folks are keeping an eye to, because it's not just the reaction. I think, Michael, they're also going to watch and see how many people actually go to the Mooresville location. I think it'll be packed every week. I think it'll be packed because I think people are not going to do what the bishop wants, and they're not defying the bishop if they don't go to if they drive 2.5 hours to the Latin Mass, then they're driving 2.5 hours. They're still fulfilling the awful thing is they're restricting it to twice a month. So they're making it twice a month. Like I said, there's options. There's a Ukrainian rite if you wanted. Like Michael is saying, there's one in Mount Holy, just outside. There's an SSPX in Charlotte that I'm sure will be flooded with refugees from that, and it's not gonna go the way His Excellency thinks it's going to. And that's not me trying to be like, you're not gonna do. I have a feeling, knowing the people that I know in Charlotte, is that they're not going to be obedient as far as being like, oh well, it's too far, I guess we'll just go to the local Novus Ordo mass, because my wife and I wish we could get to a Latin mass every week. When we go to Rome, we have the pleasure of going to an FSSP mass in Rome, or an Institute of Christ the King mass in Rome, and those are pretty awesome. And it's really crazy when you go to a foreign country. I've only been to Rome and Switzerland, so I haven't been like traveling all over. When my wife and I went to Switzerland, we went to an English mass there, and it was the same thing as an English mass here. It's the same kind of lack of reverence around that. So it is what it is in that regard, and it's really sad to see. And I don't like this, and I don't like the fact that the bishop is in Indiana, and this bishop in Indiana is doing the same thing. Bishop Roper McCloy, he announced the same thing, and he's doing. It seems like you're going to see a rash of these around these United States, simply because I think the bishops that are in charge right now are like, okay, if we don't do this now, I think Pope Leo is going to loosen the restrictions. This is our last chance to really like give people the choice. We need to peel as many people off of the Latin mass as we can right now, before the Holy Father, in his attempt to unify the church, loosens the restrictions. Like I said, I don't think he's going to come out anytime soon, because he's got to get his people in place, because as soon as he tries to do it, he's going to get pushback. Or remember, the Vatican, outside of being the head of the church, is also a bureaucracy. And if they don't like what they see, they can slow roll it. So, and I agree, Bellator. I agree. It's a knee-jerk movement. They're jumping the gun. I think they're pulling the trigger, so to speak, before Pope Leo can get his feet settled. And I do believe, I could be proven wrong, at some point during Pope Leo's pontificate, he will loosen the restrictions. It may not be for a while, guys, because it's going to take time for him to put the people in place that will implement the Holy Father's agenda. But until then, the Catholics in Indiana, the Catholics in North Carolina, my heart goes out to you. We had something similar happen to us when we lost St. Mary's Cathedral in Austin, because St. Mary's Cathedral had a beautiful 7 a.m. low mass that you could go. And that was the only, I was like, I'll only go to the 7 a.m. low mass in Austin, because that's when all the homeless people are sleeping. Not being mean, that's just kind of a fact. Because if you go to if you go anywhere in Austin, you're accosted by homeless people. It's awful. It's absolutely terrible there. So it is what it is in that regard. That's all we can do, my friend Dean, is just pray for the Holy Father, that he has the strength to unify. If he undoes Traditionis Custodes, that will go a big step further to reuniting the church, and kind of putting the division back together. Because right now it is a hot topic here in the United States. I know in Canada, I know Kennedy Hall's had some issues with. He's talked about his struggles and dealing with that there. And it's something that it's an unnecessary, it's an unforced error, in my opinion. It's something that's there. It's our birthright. It's guaranteed to us. And yet they're still trying to force something that people don't like. And it's a shame that they're doing what some would call our petty actions to punish the faithful, instead of leading. The bishop's job is he's got to lead his diocese. He's got to lead his flock. And I think he may feel that he's doing it in this case by doing this, but what he's doing is spreading division. And people are going to be disappointed in the Holy Father, and they're going to be hesitant towards him. And I don't think it's not, I don't know. I'm a nobody, but I think it's not a great move. Especially when you're trying to promote the one true faith, and we can't promote the one true faith because we're having infighting about which mass is better, and it's so annoying to be dealing with that. We shouldn't have to. So that's our Catholic news here. So this is RickCast. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. And thank you guys in the chat room for helping me out through that, because I try to be a faithful Catholic, but my chat helps me out. Take your pick. Dealer's choice, Tom or Richard. We're gonna go with Richard because he's the king. Number 43, baby. So let's get to our last story of the day. Yeah, that NASCAR fact, I know that. All right, last story of the day on our Friday before Memorial Day show. Fantastic Four reshoots and Avengers rescheduled. Marvel's magic is fading. Marvel is on the cusp, in my opinion, of becoming irrelevant, because they very similarly went with a woke agenda, and it's hurting them. They thought they could do no wrong. They thought this right here, this logo, that they could slap this logo on any movie and it would make $1 billion. It did for a while, but nothing lasts forever. It's from the good people over at Bleeding Fools. Marvel Studios, once the king of the superhero movies, is now struggling to keep its act together. The next big Avengers movie, Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars, have both been delayed by 6 months. These movies were supposed to be the next huge events after Avengers Endgame, but now nobody even knows when they'll come out. Marvel just keeps pushing back the release dates, which also inflates the budget, and it's hard to care about movies that seem like they may never arrive. Marvel's recent movies and TV shows, evident in this year's Captain America, Brave New World, and Thunderbolts, or New Avengers, or whatever they want to call it, have been all over the place. Instead of telling strong, connected stories, the studio just seems to be throwing out stuff for the sake of catching release dates. Until they are D-list characters that aren't interesting, plots that are confusing, or just boring. Fans who used to be excited for every new release are now skipping them, waiting for streaming, or if you're like me, just checked out. I haven't seen a Marvel movie since Spider-Man, and I don't think Spider-Man really counts because it's a Sony property. It's not really a Marvel property. So let's see. It was earlier this month that Disney CEO Bob Iger, who's on his way out in 2026, and he's trying to just cobble this together until he leaves, admitted during an investor call that the studio had been making too much. Disney's plan for the Marvel Cinematic Universe is falling apart, and even the most compliant fans are starting to notice. Disney and Marvel's leadership doesn't seem to have a plan. They keep announcing projects, and they just cancel them. And so what they're unfortunately doing is they're following in the footsteps of Star Wars. So Star Wars and Marvel, and this is Chris Gore's comment, will be studied in business schools for a long time because they were profitable brands aimed at boys. Comic book superheroes, and space laser fighting monks, space westerns. And they bought these brands because Disney is a female-centric company. It appeals to women, Disney princesses, blah, blah, blah. They bought Marvel and they bought Star Wars to appeal and try to get young boys to, buy action figures and go to the parks and do all these other things. But they just couldn't help themselves, and they turned these boy brands into female-centric brands. And if you notice, it has coincided when you went from Tony Stark and, Steve Rogers and the two pillars of the MCU and these male-dominated, these male-centric stories into, frumpy Black Widow 2.0 and Florence Pugh. I'm sorry, she may be an attractive woman, but she's not Black Widow, right? She's not a super spy. She's not she's not a compelling character. And you have other things where it's like, we're going to do a female Thor and a female, Captain America, and we're going to do all the female things. And people are just going, nah, they're not as interesting. I'm sorry, they're just not. And you've seen that in the fact that people's interests are fading. And there are even reports that their most hyped movie yet, The Fantastic Four, is running into problems. Reports say the movie is headed for emergency reshoots, which there have been pictures of, even before it hits theaters. The movie is 5-6 weeks away, and they're still picking up. They're bringing cast members back and not doing touch-up scenes, but they're shooting brand new scenes that now have to be edited into the older film, because this movie, which is supposed to be about this guy, but Pedro Pascal is a flaming beta male, and the movie is actually focused on her. They took a movie about a family and they turned it into Sue Storm's movie, which is what people are saying, and people are not down with that. Reshoots mean the studio isn't happy with the film, and that rarely leads to a good product, because you start smashing different things together, and once you start cobbling bits from others, the film doesn't flow right. It doesn't have a good sense of story, and it's ultimately going to be destroyed. Now, movies have done reshoots before, and it's not a big deal, but they usually do them, 3, 4, 5 months out with plenty of time to edit together. The editor of this film is going to take up these new things, and he's going to be burning the midnight oil until the last minute. A decade ago, Marvel movies were must-see events. Now they feel like homework. The excitement is gone. Disney Plus has destroyed that with all their awful content, especially with Ironheart, the Black Iron Man fill-in that nobody is waiting for. Chris Gore has people tell him from Film Threat that it is the worst Marvel product they've ever put together. You're going to dump that thing out in July. And now everybody's looking at the new Superman movie. Which I have my doubts on. If the Superman movie flops, then the superhero genre is dead, which is another reason why I think they're pushing the Avengers movies back, because there's probably a 25% chance that these films get canceled. If they can't nail the Fantastic Four, and there's no new Marvel films between the Fantastic Four and Avengers Doomsday, there will be little to no excitement behind it. They may just quietly cancel it. They'll just delay it until people don't care anymore, and then cancel it and pay out who they need to pay out. But you're witnessing in real time a studio go from the heights of what it was with Avengers Endgame, and even Captain Marvel made $1 billion and all this other stuff, to the Thunderbolts. What is the box office total of Thunderbolts or New Avengers or whatever the crap they're calling it? Box office total versus budget. Let me get that in there. Gronk, tell me that. So, come up as of May 24th, the box office for Thunderbolt stands as 162 million domestically and 332 million worldwide, and it had a budget about 180 million, with 100 million in budgeting, making it 280 million total. Now, that 330 million that they made, I think half goes back to the theaters. So it may squeak out a profit, but Avengers Endgame made over $1 billion. I think Avengers Endgame almost made the entire budget of Thunderbolts in its opening weekend. And now they're struggling to even break $500 million with their films. And Captain America, man who doesn't like America, didn't break 500 million either. So you're looking at a company, you're looking at the real-time collapse of the one studio that was propping up the entire film industry. And it's going to be sad. This in conjunction with the rise of Google Flow and AI films, Hollywood is in real trouble. And it could drastically change by the time Avengers Endgame is supposed to come out in 2027. By that time, they may have, other studios may have released fully budgeted AI films for like $4 or $5 million, and they'll put them in theaters, and people will go, because most people, if you don't tell people it's an AI movie, they'll just go see it. It's real enough that your average person will be like, oh, I wasn't bad. And we'll see how it goes from here, but it's not looking good for Marvel. And Marvel's been propping up everybody, and everybody's hoping that new Superman does well, and James Gunn, his universe kicks off, because if it doesn't, then the superhero genre is going to go the way of the Western. You'll have a couple come out every year. They'll do okay, but they aren't the linchpin of the theater industry that they used to be. And everybody's talking about it. The fact that everybody in the industry is talking about the fact that the film industry is in a lot of trouble. So we'll see. But I'm telling you right now, there's a 25% chance that the Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars don't even get made. I know right now that seems preposterous to say, but if Fantastic Four First Steps bombs, how did they go into Avengers Doomsday? They're going to throw these things out there and face having their tent pole properties, their things that make money, completely bomb out. And so that is what it is, and it's a sad thing to say, but they had, kind of like we started the show with Around the Horn, they had a formula, they went away with it, they got canceled. Marvel had a formula, they went away from it. They tried to push comic book storylines that weren't popular, and like the Ironheart show is based off of a comic that had 12 issues published. Right? The Thunderbolts was a D-list group of characters that never sold well. And so they thought they could do another Guardians of the Galaxy, but it's too late. The audience has lost faith. The Netflix show Daredevil never even charted on Nielsen. Not enough people watched it. And I reviewed it. It was awful. I mean, it was fine, but the treatment of both Daredevil and Kingpin in that show was atrocious. And I think people have lost faith in Marvel, as they should have. Marvel had the goodwill of the public, and they squandered it because their pride got in the way. Let's use a Catholic term there. Their pride got in the way. Their pride and their greed and their vanity, for a second, got in the way. And now they're suffering because of it. They tried to tell the audience, you will like these female-driven movies. You will like these movies with the social message that, Captain America, Captain America with Sam Wilson despises you, but you're gonna love him as much as Steve Rogers. And yeah, Chris Evans is a whacked out lib, but he played the character of Steve Rogers to a T. He was amazing at it. And the same thing with like Tony Stark. You're gonna like this Tony Stark replacement, even though nobody can replace Tony Stark. Robert Downey Jr. is Tony Stark. You got to let that character be gone for 10 years and just reboot him before you try it again. And I think Marvel's going to have to do that as well. They may have to take a fight. Like, look what's happened to Star Wars. Star Wars has not. When was the last new? When was the last Star Wars? I think it was Rise of Skywalker. When was that? 2019, 2020? Last Star Wars movie, Rise of Skywalker in 2019. That's 5 years ago. That's 4 years ago? 1920, no, it's 5 years ago. I don't do math well. I'm a social studies teacher. What do you want? 2019. Thank you, Belter. 2019. So that's 5-6 years ago. And there's no plans for a new one. I mean, they got some plans in the pipeline. 6. Thank you. Math is hard. Math is hard. And I just turned into Kermit the Frog. Hi ho, Kermit the Frog here, and I can't do math. It's in 6 years. Mandalorian's coming out next summer, my brother. They're filming it now. But even that's based off a TV show on Disney Plus, which most people haven't seen. So I don't know if that audience is strong enough to make it profitable. But a 6-year wait, it was unthinkable when they bought Star Wars and they bought Disney. The idea was they were going to churn out movies, a new Star Wars property every 2 years, a new Marvel property every 3. They were just going to churn these things out forever, and they were just going to make billions of dollars. But they didn't take the time to write good stories. They just thought they were going to thrust this slop upon you, and you were going to be consume product. When's next product? Consume product. When's next product? Consume. It's all so good, even though it's crap. And now they're suffering for it. Star Wars used to be the most profitable intellectual property on the planet, between the action figures and the movies and the special releases and all that. It used to be the most profitable one on the planet, bar none. Now they can't even get a stinking movie out. because the last three really didn't make, I mean, they cost $500-600 million each. Even if they crossed $1 billion, they were squeaking out payments. I think they bought Star Wars for $4 billion. I don't think they've made their money back on Star Wars yet. They've made their money back on Marvel because Marvel made $21 billion through the first three phases. So they made their money back on Marvel, but now that's dead as well. It's dead as well because they decided to absolutely crush it under the weight of social justice. All right, folks, that's it for this episode of RickCast here on this beautiful Friday night, the night before Memorial Day weekend. Yeah, I'm sorry. Spaceballs a flamethrower. The kids love this one, right? Merchandising. That's where the sales of the movie really make. Merchandising. Oh, Spaceballs. Such a good film. I heard they were making a second one. Amazon's going to make a second one, which I hope they don't do because it's going to be absolutely tragically bad. Just leave Spaceballs alone. But anyway, that's it for this episode of RickCast, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. We had a great crowd on a Friday night, and I love it. I love the fact that you guys are choosing to hang out with me. It's a huge honor. It is a huge honor. That's why I will be here on Monday, 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to do an episode of RickCast. Stuff is going to happen over the weekend. Stuff is going to happen on Monday, and you and I are just going to hang out probably for another hour and a half. This was fun. This was fun, and it didn't even feel like an hour and a half for me. And the reason why the show went well is because of you guys. You guys were awesome. Everybody in the chat. I know I feel like I'm pandering, but I can't thank you guys enough for it. Simply because without you guys, it's just me talking and nobody cares about that. You guys make the show special. You guys on Rumble make the show special. You guys on Getter make the show special. So thank every single one of you. And of course, my bar rats on YouTube and Dean, my man holding it down on X, and my one, where is he still on? My one Twitch user hanging out on Twitch. Apparently I can use Kick now. I'm going to have to sign up for a Kick account. It's another streaming thing, and I'll put a show out on Kick, even if 2 people watch it. Either way, that's just me rambling. You guys have a great weekend. I release you. I will talk to you all on Monday here on RickCast. Do me a huge favor on your way out. Karate kick the like button, smash the like button, leave a comment down below on Get or Rumble, wherever you are watching it live or in the replay. I will talk to you all Monday. Have a great weekend. God bless. And until that day comes, too soon. Until that day comes, I'm still talking. Until that day comes, I'm the one hitting the button too, which is crazy. Until that day comes, free Dexter Taylor.